last time we discussed a little bit about the optic and the acoustic branches and how they were used by Debye and Einstein in the opposite sequence. That is, Einstein used it first for the optic, and then the Debye was for the acoustic branches to explain the specific heat of solids. Now in this lecture, what I am going to be doing is to show you how to think of vibrations in a complex solid, because so far we have only discussed a one dimensional chain with either one atom or two atoms. Okay, so let us see how to do it. So first of all, we have a potential V, and this is a function of the coordinates of all the atoms in a solid. Now supposing you have got we use say L as the index for the unit cell and S for the atom in the unit cell, and alpha, beta, gamma for the Cartesian coordinate. X comma y comma z. Okay. So if I use that, then what I am going to get is the following. So I can describe my potential V is a function of all the atoms in a solid. So this I can just call it, I will just call it V. Okay. And the distances are given by R is equal to RL plus RS, okay, of any given atom S in the unit cell L comma S. So let us assume that there are equilibrium positions. There is an equilibrium position at which the potential is a minimum, so that is called at which V is equal to V naught, and expand V about this position in a Taylor series. If we did that, what we would get is V is equal to V naught plus sigma over all the unit cells, all the atoms, all the positions, del V upon del, let me call this as R Ls alpha times mu alpha Ls, where mu alpha Ls is the displacement, and I am taking the derivative, partial derivative with respect to the movement of atom in the Sth atom in the Lth unit cell along the alpha direction, and mu Ls alpha is the alpha coordinate of the Sth atom in the Lth unit cell, and then I can also write down 1 plus 1/2 of sigma over Ls alpha, sigma over Ls beta, del squared V upon del R Ls alpha, del R Ls beta times mu alpha Ls mu beta, this is L prime S prime, L prime S prime, and mu beta L prime, sorry. L prime S prime. So this is what I would get if I ignore all the other terms. So in the harmonic approximation, higher order terms are ignored. Higher than the quadratic are ignored. So the force on atom, the sth atom, on sth atom in the lth unit cell along alpha is given by F L S alpha is given by minus grad, or I can say use a differentiation, minus del V by del mu L S alpha, or that is equal to minus of sigma over L prime S prime beta times del square V by del R alpha L S del R beta L prime S prime times mu beta L prime S prime. Okay. So I think there is a half term is also there. Okay. So what we have in this case is that the force, the term del square V upon del R L S alpha del R L prime S prime beta, what it tells is it is a force constant which gives the force on atom S in unit cell L along alpha direction when a displacement u beta L prime S prime, I have called it mu, is carried out on S prime atom in L prime unit cell along beta direction. So what we are saying is there is, you tug some atom in some direction, it is going to introduce it is going to exert a force on another atom in a different direction, and the force constant relates the magnitude of tugging to the magnitude of the force. So this is the general harmonic approximation, involves stopping at this. Involves going up to second term. Now you can ask me what happens to the first term. Okay. All these things are done at equilibrium. Okay. And V0 is a constant energy. V0 is a constant, and we can actually take it as 0 to define the 0 of energy. And the first derivatives vanish because they are taken at a minimum. The derivatives are taken at the minimum in the potential energy, because that is the equilibrium position. That is at the equilibrium positions. So the potential energy is basically only given by this quantity, 1/2 of that, rather by this quantity. Okay. So that is a harmonic approximation, and so because the force is proportional to displacement, so it follows the Hooke's law. So this is the approximation that is made in almost all cases, not just in solids, in all the molecules, and based on that you get the frequencies. So if you are dealing with a molecule, what happens is interesting. You have 3 degrees of translation of the molecule, of each molecule, and 3 rotation if it is a nonlinear molecule, and 3n minus 6 vibrations. So far what we spoke about was the 3 degrees of translation. 3 degrees of translation give rise to acoustic and optic branches. So these are the translational modes, because it is the frozen degrees of freedom of translation that gives rise to these vibrations. And then the 3 rotations, you can again have the same way of rotating. For example, you can have a rotation of the molecule which goes like this. That is, if I were to just put a circle. So in this case you have in this direction, and then you have rotated the molecule to this direction, you have rotated the molecule to this direction, rotated the molecule to this direction, and rotated it back to this direction. So this is one way you can actually have a rotational mode in the crystal, respecting periodicity of the crystal. So if you do this, these rotations give rise to what are called librational modes. So librational modes are lattice translational symmetry of the rotations in the crystal, librational modes, which correspond to rotation in sync or in coherence from one unit cell to another unit cell of all the molecules in the crystal. Now the 3n minus 6 internal vibrational modes of the molecule are only weakly perturbed by the crystal lattice. So because they are weakly perturbed, they more or less stay the same. So these show very little dispersion. So this is what happens when you have a molecular solid. Now so I am not going to talk more about this part, because you can always do the set up a generalized equation, secular equations for solving for the frequencies, very much like what you did for the 2 atom case. But we will not do that, because all you need to do is expand every one of the displacements in terms of a Fourier series, and then look at each of the Fourier components of the displacements independently. So now what I am going to do is something to do with quantization of phonons, or quantization of lattice vibrations. So far we were only talking about classical calculations. We only did classical harmonic oscillator is what we studied. And in the classical harmonic oscillator we had a fundamental frequency which was given by omega q, depending upon whether you have acoustic or optic, and if it is acoustic, if it is longitudinal or transverse, and same with optic, longitudinal and transverse. Now in quantum mechanics of a harmonic oscillator, so omega q continues to be the fundamental frequency, because if you were to solve a Schrodinger equation corresponding to the Hamiltonian of the harmonic oscillator, then you will get eigenstates as the Hermite polynomials and the eigenvalues as expressed in terms of the fundamental frequency omega q, which is basically root k by m for a harmonic oscillator. So in this case, so each oscillator can be in any of the vibrational states. NQ. So NQ can be equal to 0, 1, 2, etc. And the energy is E NQ is equal to n plus half h cross omega q. The half is due to 0 point vibration. So a harmonic oscillator has a 0 point vibrational energy, and that is given by half h cross omega q. So if you look at a solid, then you have q going from minus pi by a less than or equal to pi by a. So there are n values for each mode. So what you have is every mode can be in a different vibrational state. That is, NQ may be 0 for q equal to pi by a and transverse optic, let us say, and NQ equal to 2 for q equal to pi by 2a, let us say, for this longitudinal acoustic. And so forth. So if you want to define the ground state of the solid, all NQ are equal to 0 for all q and all modes. So this will be the ground state. Now because of temperature or because of radiation or whatever else, you can probably excite from this ground state. So for example, you can excite such that like I said, n of q can be 0 for transverse optic and n of q can be 2 for longitudinal acoustic and so forth. So every excitation of every mode by a unit change in the quantum number corresponding to the mode is called a phonon. Phonon creation in that mode. For example, if you excite the q equal to pi by a transverse acoustic mode from NQ equal to 0 to NQ equal to 1, then you say that you have got one phonon in the transverse optic mode. But supposing it was already excited, like NQ equal to 2 in the longitudinal acoustic mode, and it gets de-excited because of any process that is occurring, either a spontaneous emission or induced emission, then it can come down from 2 to 1, and then you say that a phonon is destroyed in the q equal to pi by 2a of the longitudinal acoustic mode. Okay. So similarly, so when a mode is de-excited, we say a phonon is destroyed. or annihilated. You can use either of these words, annihilated. So, usually it happens that in chemistry we are used to saying it is in a vibrationally excited state with quantum number 2 or quantum number 1 and so forth, but in physics you will just say that, oh, it has got 2 phonons in that particular state. So, the vibrational state of a solid is given in what is called the occupation number representation. So, the ground state is going to be 0 0 0 0 for all modes. This is the ground state. So, for a singly excited state it can be 0 0 0 0 0 0 1 0 0, and this one can be anywhere depending upon the wave vector at which you have actually excited the mode. Okay. So, this is the way you do it. So, in general it is given by NQ1, NQ2, NQN. So, this gives me the vibration state. This is for one particular mode, and this is to be multiplied into various other modes. Okay, so this is what we actually mean by quantization of lattice vibrations. It is basically going from classical mechanics to quantum mechanics. Nothing really changes except the fact that the energy of the vibrational energy is now quantized, and the state in which it is, if it is not the ground state, then if it is the nth vibrationally excited state, then you say you have got n phonons in that state. So, I am not going to say more about this one. So, this is just a matter of language, and as far as I understand, and I will not continue with this one, but I will go into something else which is the anharmonic solid. So, in the remaining time I will just discuss a little bit about what anharmonicity does. So, there are problems with harmonicity, problems with a harmonic solid. So, one of the problems that you know is that a harmonic solid cannot expand. A harmonic solid cannot expand. So, there is no thermal expansion, cannot expand on heating. That is, there is no thermal expansion. So, the reason is very simple. You look at the harmonic potential. The harmonic potential is a parabola. I will draw a better one. Okay, and this is the potential energy V, and this is x, okay, and this is x naught, the equilibrium position. So, if you look at the vibration levels, so this is n equal to 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. You go, they are all equally spaced, completely equally spaced, and you also have the for every vibrational state the equilibrium distance is the same. So, when you actually heat a solid, what happens? You populate higher vibrational energy states, but if the higher vibrational states have the same equilibrium distance as the ground state equilibrium distance, then the solid cannot expand. And if it is a molecule, you see that a molecule can never break, okay. But the real potential actually goes something like this. So that as you increase the quantum number Okay, so the equilibrium distance, so if I say this is x naught versus x, so this is n equal to 0, n equal to 1, n equal to 2, 3, 4. So you see that x naught increases with the quantum number n, and that is the reason why you will have a thermal expansion of the real solids. So you will have a thermal expansion of real solids. So it is not good to just stop at the harmonic potential, because you have to look for thermal, it does not give you the correct thermal properties. Another one is thermal conductivity. The thermal conductivity of a harmonic solid is infinite in a perfect infinite specimen. In a finite specimen with defects, then the mean free path may be different for the phonons. Okay, so what it means is that the phonons cannot get scattered. There is no term in the Hamiltonian of the lattice when you do the harmonic approximation which couples different phonons. So because it does not couple different phonons, a phonon with momentum q will continue to have momentum q as it travels through the whole specimen. So because of that, it does not lose its energy or its momentum, and so the thermal conductivity is going to be infinite. So there is no scattering of phonons, no phonon scattering. And so we will have infinite thermal conductivity for a perfect specimen, but for a finite specimen the scattering is because of in real specimens we have surfaces, we also have impurities. So these can scatter, but nothing else can scatter a harmonic phonon. So what one needs to do is that one has to go beyond the harmonic approximation if one wants to correct it. So we have to go beyond harmonic approximation. That is, we must have higher order terms like cubic term, the quartic term, and so on and so forth. You will have to add to the Hamiltonian or use real potentials instead of using the harmonic potential, and then do a calculation of the vibrational modes. If you do that, if you assume that the harmonic approximation is a 0th order approximation, then what happens is phonons of momenta q1 and phonons of momenta q2 can interact to give a momentum q3 plus some reciprocal lattice vector kn. So this is the conservation of crystal momentum, which actually means that because the crystal momentum represents the group velocity of the phonons, so this is also in a way you can take as momentum conservation. So q1 plus q2 is equal to q3 plus kn. So if q1s are large, if q's are large, then it is possible to have a scattering which involves a reciprocal lattice translation vector. So what I am saying is that if I am looking at the Brillouin zone, this is center. So I have a q1 which is here and a q2 which is here. then Q1 plus Q2 will only be this one, Q3. So for small q, we cannot have participation of reciprocal lattice vector. But on the other hand, if you have a large q, okay, so let us assume that this is q1 and this is q2, okay, then we can have pretty large reciprocal lattice translation, the term q1 plus q2. Then in this case, q1 plus q2 equal to q3 plus some reciprocal lattice translation vector kn. Okay, and this is called when kn is non-zero, that is when you have the participation of the reciprocal lattice vector, then this is called an Umklapp process. Okay, and in the Umklapp process we can lose phonon momenta and energy, okay, because phonon gives a momentum to the crystal lattice. And this can the other processes are called normal process. The other process is called N process or normal process. If you are looking at the acoustic modes, because they are the ones energetically easy to participate at any temperature because they have low energies, acoustic modes at low temperatures small wave vector, small q phonons are only created. Because the energy depends upon q, and at low temperatures higher energy states are not accessible, and so only the low energy phonons are created at low temperatures, and low energy acoustic phonons necessarily have a small q. So we will not have significant U processes. Like I said, you are somewhere in the region here, so in this region you cannot have a significant participation of the lattice. So at higher temperatures, U processes limit thermal conductivity of the solid. So the thermal conductivity of a solid becomes finite when you have at higher temperatures, because scattering of the phonons which is allowed, and the scattering of the phonons can change the momentum and also the energy of the phonon. So the energy that is carried by the phonon is not going in only one direction uninterrupted. So this is the picture for the thermal conductivity. I think I am not going to say more about phonons because I have come to the end of the course, but there are lots of other things that one has to think of when one is talking about electronic structure. For example, I have not discussed electron phonon interactions, and I have not discussed properties like collective properties of electrons like superconductivity and so forth. But nonetheless, this was supposed to be a basic course, and I hope I have given you a reasonable introduction to the electronic structure of solids, as well as a little bit of how the lattice vibrations are understood in solids. And I thank you very much for your interest in the course and for attending it. Thank you and bye.